Hey guys, and welcome back to your one room schoolhouse. If you are new here, my name is Mary Barfield and I'm a homeschooling mama to a first grader and a third grader. And today's video is going to be another one in my review series for the Little School of Smith's American Girl History units, and we have just finished up Kirsten's unit, which is all about growing up in pioneer America in 1854. Now, we really loved this unit. Specifically, my oldest daughter did say that prior to this unit, her favorite American Girl was Felicity, and Colonial America has always been a favorite of mine, but she did tell me after this one, Kirsten was now one of her favorites as well. So Felicity and Kirsten, she wanted me to let you guys know, are both her favorites. But this unit was a really good one. The girls really enjoyed the storyline that comes with Kirsten. She is a girl that has immigrating from Sweden all the way to Minnesota, where she's got some family there. And it's a really good look inside of what immigration was like in the mid 1800s. Now, this was before the Statue of Liberty was instituted, but you still get a little sneak peek into what that looked like when they were coming off the boat, getting inspected, the fear around if you were sick coming over, you would be put in quarantine and could get separated from your family. It really put you in the shoes of a child going through that. And both my girls really loved the storyline. So I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm going to tell you about the books that we read, the projects that we did, which I'm going to be honest with you, we did not do as many projects. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm going to share everything with you, what we loved about it, etc. So stick around. All right, so if you've seen any of my other American Girl unit study reviews, and I'll link, by the way, the whole review playlist down below for you if you want to catch up on the ones that we've already done. You know that I like to start it off with talking about the spines that Lindsay, the creator of the curriculum, recommends, or she basically says this is the bare minimum you need to do the curriculum. And then everything else is obviously optional and just enhances the knowledge that the girls are learning. So first I like to start off with what are the spines that we need for it. And mind you, these books are no longer in print, but I always like to let everybody know I found almost all of these either at my local thrift store, thrift books, or on eBay. Those were the top 3 places I was finding everything. And most of them I found for very inexpensive, anywhere from free, because with thrift books, they have a program where you get books for free if you get so many. And I got quite a few of them for free. And then others, like the bigger ones, like these big spines, Welcome to Kirsten's World, I found them for anywhere from $10 to $20, depending on which girl it was. If you have seen my Kaya review, you know that's the only girl that I didn't get the world for, because hers was going for $140. But the great part is, if you cannot find the girl's world spine, you can just get all 6 of the books. If you can find them in her series, which these, even though they're not in print, you can find them out there. They're everywhere. In the back of these books, they have the same information that is in here, just in a smaller format and not in one book. So it is possible to do this series with either all 6 from the girls series, or what we did was what she recommends is we got the Welcome to Kirsten's World. Now, this book, and for every other subsequent American Girl, is all about the time period. It references Kirsten in the book occasionally here and there, like this would have been what Kirsten was, doing, but it's all about the time period, new homes on the prairie. What was the journey like immigrating from Sweden? They talk about any conflicts that were going on, daily life on the homestead. The girls particularly love when they talk about like the toilet stuff, like toiletries or outhouses or things like that. I don't know why, but I guess it's relatable. What people did during the seasons. This one the girls really liked. There was a narration notebook that went along with this page that was really good. But long story short, this is where you get a lot of the history, what actually was going on. But then you get the living narrative, which I personally love, from the chapter books. So for this one, you will specifically need, I got them out of order here, you guys, hold on a second. You will need Meet Kirsten, which is the first book in her series. You will also need book 2, which is Kirsten Learns a Lesson. And then the last one you will need is Happy Birthday, Kirsten. So you're reading these, you're referencing this book along the whole 4 weeks that you're doing the program, along with some other fun activities, narration notebooking. She includes videos, so much stuff. So you get a really good sense of what it would be like to be Kirsten, being an immigrant coming to America in the mid-1850s. Now, I like to also talk about books that we brought in either from the library or that I already owned that enhanced it. She also provides a laundry list of potential books that you can bring in that are optional to help support the information. Some of them are reference books, some of them are additional living books like narrative type books, picture books. There's so much in there. There's even a list of books for boys. So if you have any boys that are tagging along, there's some books just for them that she does a great job of picking out. But first, I wanted to talk about what we learned each week, and then I'll tell you the book that we brought in extra for the series. So the first week was all about meeting Kirsten and learning about immigration. Now, I didn't bring in any extra book for this because the ones that she recommended were not at my library. And we have decided basically that if it's not at our library and it's not one that we might use for another curriculum or something like that, we just forego it, and it's fine because there's so many other things that we are learning through the World Book, Kirsten's World Book, or the videos that are included. So we really don't need it. So I try for budget purposes not to go ham and buy extra ones. So for the first week, we just learned about immigration. We did a lot of map referencing and map work. We followed the journey with Kirsten. So she went from Sweden all the way to New York City and gets dropped off there. She ends up getting lost at one point, which is kind of scary, but she obviously makes it back to her family. She does then take a train from New York all the way to, I think it was Chicago. They drop her off in Chicago, and then they're supposed to take covered wagons, but something happens where they don't. I'm going to give you guys a trigger warning for book one, though. This actually made my oldest daughter quite upset, and she actually ended up crying. But she is a very empathetic person. You can call her a sensitive learner. I don't know, because some things that you would think would make her cry and sensitive too, she's not. But I think when it has anything to do with death of animals or like a loved one, she has a really hard time with it. And I was not prepared for this. And it actually kind of made me a little choked up when we read about it in book one, in Meet Kirsten. On the road, it's after they've gotten off the train, and they have to get on a steamboat because they have to go up the Missouri River, or is it the Mississippi River? I can't remember. They have to go up the river because you learn that basically it's not just a straight linear shot. They had to then take a boat, then they had to get on a railroad, and then they had to get on a steamboat, and then they had to walk some of it. So it really gives you a good impression of what it was like to be an immigrant. But her good friend Marta, I'm not trying to do spoilers, I'm just trying to tell any parent, like, just a heads up if your kid might be upset by this. Her friend Marta gets a disease on the boat and does not make it. She gets cholera, and she does not make it, and she dies in the night. And poor Kirsten is being told, like, you can't be near her, you can come back tomorrow and see her. And then when she comes back, Marta's bed is empty, and she thinks that she must be up on the deck walking around getting fresh air. And then she finds the parents, and they've docked, and they don't know why. She's like, why have we stopped? Why are we? And they see her carry her casket off the boat. So it is very real. It is very sad. It's not gruesome or anything, but it is very jarring to somebody who is emotional. I mean, I really got choked up reading it, and then my daughter started crying, and I was like, oh no. My youngest looked at me stone cold, goes, why is Emery crying? And I'm like, this is where you being so young is actually a blessing, because you don't really understand the finality of the fact that she has just lost her best friend. And then my oldest daughter, this is where I recognized, like, she started comparing it to, she's like, I don't think I could live through one of my best friends dying. And then she started talking about our neighbors who are one of her best friends, and they're exactly her same age, 9 years old, just like Kirsten and her friend Marta. And she's like, I don't think I could handle that. And I was like, well, the good thing is that this is just a story. So, and I was able to get her to calm down. But if you do have an empathetic learner and sensitive learner, just be prepared. After that, nothing crazy happens that I would consider a trigger warning for anything. But to this day, I really can't talk about Marta, or else my daughter gets upset. So we have to move on from that. But the second week, let's move on. Sorry, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that, because I wish I had had that heads up. So the second week was all about Prairie homes and learning about Prairie school. And for this one, we got a book from the library called Home in the Woods. Here's a picture of what it looks like. My girls loved this book. They wish I had purchased it. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, but we can get it from the library whenever y'all want to. And it's written about the author's, I think, grandmother, and about what it was like living, basically, I think she had, I can't remember how many kids her mother had. Her mom was a single mom. They had to move into a shed, and she had, I mean, legitimately, I think like 12 kids, I think. And it was how they survived. And it was very interesting. And it was a really good look into what it was like being impoverished back in those days. And like, I mean, it was really well done, and the illustrations were beautiful. And then you get to learn that it was an actual real family, and like some of the people, some of her great grandmothers, siblings were still alive. I think it was her great grandmother at the time of her publishing it. I think it was in 2019 she published it, and like 5 of them were still alive. I mean, they were in their late 90s, maybe late 80s. One of them I think might have been in their late 80s. But I mean, it was just an incredible story, and it was very like, it was just very eye-opening, and my girls loved it. So that was a really good one about like growing up on the prairie and what that was like. Now this wasn't specifically Prairie, but it was a little bit after obviously Kirsten's time, but it gave you an idea of what it would have been like then. But more importantly, we got to learn about what a one-room schoolhouse was all about in Kirsten Learns a Lesson. You know, it was very interesting because it was told from obviously Kirsten's perspective, and she knows no English. So her teacher is having her, it's funny, do poetry memorization, and they have to do copy work. And it's very like a lot of the things that we do in our school. And my mom or my daughter was like, Mommy, that's stuff we do for like our language arts. I was like, I know, isn't that neat? And it's kind of like we have our own little one-room schoolhouse, hence the name of my channel, with you and your sister. And so I think they really enjoyed getting to see what that was like, understanding like how they use slates and things like that. It was a really cool look into what school life was like in the prairie. On top of that, her mother is pregnant, and then they also didn't realize that a lot of times, so she's the oldest girl, well, she's the only daughter until her mom gives birth to her baby sister, but her brothers were able to go to school while she had to stay home and help her mom after the baby was born. And my girls were like, well, why didn't the boys stay? And that brought up some conversations about women's roles and men's role back then and everything, and how that was very different than it is now. And that kids, oftentimes girls or boys, would end up having to stay and not be able to get a full education for different reasons. But in this situation, it was just temporary. Thankfully, she was able to go back to school. But it opened up a lot of really good conversations. So this was a really, I don't know, the girls just really were engaged with the story. It was so interesting. On top of that, she makes a friend, I think, yes, it's in the second one. She makes friends with one of the Native American girls in the area, singing, hold on, what was her name? I'm gonna forget her name, let me look it up. Singing Bird. And even though they can't really understand each other, obviously they start to kind of pick up some of each other's words, and they're able to kind of have rudimentary conversation. They're able to converse with each other through drawing in the sand, and then they give each other little trinkets back and forth. And she strikes up a friendship with a Native American girl around the corner from like her home. And so it addresses the fact that when European settlers came in, and then Americans started pushing, like after they became the United States of America, so Americans were pushing westward, they were encroaching on the lands that the Native American tribes were hunting on. And it highlighted, because at the end of this book, Singing Bird comes to tell Kirsten, my family, we are leaving. We have to move because there is no more buffalo. There is no more anything there's no more food. And so she tells her, she's like, I have to go. You come with, you are my sister. She basically, because Kirsten does meet her family and everything, and she gets to see where they live and everything. And she said, you come. My dad said it's okay. And Kirsten's like, I have to stay with my family. I would love to come with you. And like, it's like very sad actually. But it really highlights the fact that Singing Bird has to leave because of the settlements coming in are driving all of their food sources and their way of life out, essentially. So that was another good thing to kind of dig into a little bit and start to kind of touch upon. So that was week 2. Week 3, we were learning about daily life on the prairie. I actually ended up using this week to go ahead and read Dolaire's Buffalo Bill story. And we love the Dolaire books. They're great. The illustrations are fantastic. It is such a great living narrative story. The girls loved it. I explained that circle the wagons is actually a phrase that we still use today. That's from the days of the prairie, where you would circle the wagons to help each other with stuff. Obviously protect themselves in the situation, but now we use it as a turn of phrase where you say you're helping each other. We'll circle the wagons. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not know a ton about Buffalo Bill before I read this, so this was very interesting to me. In the front and the back of the book, they also have maps, so you can kind of do some map work with this if you want to do a little bit of additional. This is not recommended by Little Schoolsmiths. I just included it because I had it, and I think it paired very well with this time frame and learning about him. It talked about conflicts with the Native Americans, how they would run off and get all the buffaloes, fur trading. It was very, like, the railroads being developed. It was very good at getting into that. And so I'm from Buffalo, New York. So my oldest daughter asked, is that why the Buffalo Bills are called the Buffalo Bills? And I actually looked it up. Funny enough, I didn't know this because even being from Buffalo, but there was a naming contest for the Buffalo Bills football team. And it was a couple decades ago, and before I was born. And it was a nod to Buffalo Bill. Go figure, didn't know that. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's something I learned new. And then for the last week, we learned about the Dakota conflict and the Homestead Act. And I actually thought this would be a perfect time to read Buffalo Bird Girl. Similar to the Dolaire's books, there's beautiful illustrations, but also they mix in here some actual live pictures, which I thought was really nice in a contrast for the girls to actually see some of the things. So like when they were describing something, like they were describing one of the caches that they would put their food in for the winter. They would dig it down into the ground. They actually were able to show a real, sorry, I'm like all over the place. I don't have enough space. They showed this is actually the hole that you would climb into. It's like a root cellar is the best way to explain it. So we learned all about Buffalo Bird Girl, but she was actually part of the Hidatsa tribe. I think I'm saying that correctly. But she had in the story a run-in with the Dakota tribe, and they were established in Minnesota, which is where Kirsten was established. So I thought it was actually perfect to bring in. I know it wasn't specifically about the Dakota tribe, but it was good to like bring in and kind of round out the end of the unit. We also learned about, so with the Dakota tribe, or the Dakota conflict, it was again because the white man was coming in and taking land, but they were being told they'd go to a reservation. Don't worry, we got you. We're going to give you lots of land to live on, food, blah, blah, blah. United States government did not make actually great on that. Obviously, we all know that. And so it was really helpful to my daughters to put it in perspective for them. I was like, imagine you're living as you are right now in our house, and some other country, people from another country come in who have very different customs than ours, who speak a different language that you don't necessarily completely understand. And they come in and they say, you have to leave your house, but don't worry, we're going to give you this little small strip of land over here, but you can't continue to speak your language or continue to carry your cultural customs and everything. And I put it in perspective for her, and Emery goes, I would punch them. And I was like, okay, so fair response. But I was like, you also understand that's why it was so, the Dakota conflict happened. The Dakota tribe fought back. And so, but at the same point, this is where it got messy. It also talked about how they killed innocent like kids and stuff like that. And Emery, my oldest, was like, but that's not okay. And I was like, this is where you have to understand history and conflict are never black and white. And there are always good and bad bits, and then good in the bad bits and bad in the good bits. And I was like, and it was a good conversation, if that makes sense. And it was very eye-opening for them. And I think it really set the stage for the rest of history that we're going to learn, you know, as we go through school, that nothing is ever cut and dry. It's never black and white, ever. And depending on, this is where I brought in information about the fact that we read two different books. One from, you know, the Native American perspective, and one from basically a white person's perspective of the situation in American. And she could feel the tone difference between the two books. And so I felt like that was really a good contrast, if that makes sense. So I feel like it went really well how we paired everything together. So let's talk about activities. So again, full disclosure, we did not do any activities outside of the map work, the narration, notebooking. We did not do any of the hands-on activities this season or for this unit. And I'm being honest with you, part of it was because we actually had done some of them before. Like, she has you make homemade butter. We did that when we were doing Little House in the Big Woods not too long ago in the summer. So it felt like that would have been a little bit redundant. And also, this is, so what I found is like January is like our slow down, don't over stress about things, hibernate a little. We're feeling the season, right? We're living cyclically with the seasons. And so January is one of those where I'm just not trying to overload our plates. And frankly, it was such a good call. So it's not to say that it had nothing to do with the unit. The unit had great activities for us to do. It's just we're in a season right now where we're just not doing that many activities. Well, that's not true. My kids are drawing and making bead bracelets and like painting. They're doing so much on their own time. But within school, I should say, organized activities, we just are taking a little bit of a break, and that was perfect for us. But I did want to highlight some of the activities they do have in here, because if you do decide to do this unit during a time period when you are not in hibernation mode like I was, I want you to know what kind of activities she includes. So there is a no-sew ragdoll activity, which is great. So you don't need any sewing skills required. That was one I actually thought we might do, but I just ended up not getting to it. There's also a traditional Swedish potato soup recipe that you can make for the girls, which potatoes a pretty like tame food choice. So most kids, even if you have a picky eater, should be okay with at least trying potato soup. There is a school slate craft where you make your own slate, which I thought was really neat. Trying to think if there's anything else worth mentioning. Oh, this was actually a really neat one. She has, so speaking of sewing, there's a little bit of hand sewing required for this, but so this might be a good one for an older student, or if the mom wants to make these for the kids, you can make bonnets. So I thought that was kind of neat too. Besides that, we watched lots of videos, specifically towards the last week, learning about the westward expansion. Those videos were super helpful. And the Homestead Act and understanding all of that. What else do we do? Narration notebooking. So that's a really big part of this, of the units that Little Schoolsmith puts on for the American Girl units. So we do a lot of narration notebooking. If you've not seen any of my other videos, this is a big XL Amazon sketchbook that they've been doing all of their girls narration notebooking in, so they'll have this big keepsake notebook when we're done with it. So just to highlight some of the things that we did in here for Kirsten's unit. So we did some map work. Like I said, we went ahead and did the trip from Sweden and the different, like, they took a boat, this was a different color, they took a train, they took a steamboat to get to Minnesota. So we did some map work, which we always love a little map work. The girls both got to draw. This is my oldest daughter's drawings. This is my oldest. They drew a house on the prairie. She also drew the outhouse. She also wrote here for a narration prompt that they put mud in between the logs to seal it out, which I thought was actually really cool. And then one other thing I was going to share with you guys. We did we took a piece of paper and we split it into 4 sections, and we did the different seasons. Like I mentioned for the Kirsten's World book earlier, that they talked about the different things that the United States or the U.S. immigrants versus like what the Native Americans would be doing prep wise at that time. So my daughter put like, this is what, Kirsten and her family would be doing. This is what, Singing Bird and her family would be doing during spring. And it was a lot of times cyclical based around the harvest, right? Preparing the harvest, harvesting, then prepping it for winter, and then rinse and repeat. So I think that was really helpful to them to see what was happening in each season, So those are the big highlights. Again, I know that my oldest daughter had that sad moment when we find out that Marta passes away in the first book, but she truly, even with that happening, I mean, she was bawling over it, y'all. It was pretty traumatic for her. My youngest, again, was just like, I don't get it, but that's because she is young and doesn't understand death the way that my oldest daughter does. But even with that, she said this was her favorite so far, and we didn't do any of the activities. That really speaks, I think, to the time period, the storyline, everything. She was really fascinated learning about the Native Americans and everything. Like this one really like hit the spot for her. So we really enjoyed it. As much as we enjoyed it, we are really excited to hop into Addie's time next. So that'll be the next video you see in this review series. That'll be in about another 4 to 5 weeks, so keep an eye out for that. So if you guys have any questions about anything we talked about in this video for Kirsten's unit, put them down in the comments. I'm happy to answer anything you guys have for me. If you are new to my channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to stick around for all things homeschooling, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all.